My mom held me down while my dad arranged my wedding to a dangerous older man, so I ran away and exposed them all. Now, years later, she's sick and begging me to come back because I'm family. In my family, girls were married off the moment they got their first period. Didn't matter if you were 12, 13, or 14. The blood meant you were ready for a husband at least 3 times your age. I grew up with this idea, so in my head it didn't seem that bad, until I turned 11. Because that's when I watched my cousin Miriam get promised to a 43-year-old man, just 3 days after her first period. His previous 2 wives had died before turning 20. That was the first night I decided to stop eating enough food. Not because I was fat, and not because I hated food, but because I noticed the skinnier girls in my family would be the last ones to get their period, and I knew it was my only option. I later learned that your body actually needs to have enough fat before starting puberty, lol. The other girls called me skeleton, but I didn't care. Other girls my age were already promised to men who had children older than them. That didn't mean they stopped prepping me to be a wife, though. Every Friday from 1 a.m. to 10 a.m., I was made to serve meals to male family members for hours without speaking. And of course, if I made eye contact or noise while serving, then I would receive 10 lashes of the belt. I was forced to hold burning pots without oven mitts to toughen up soft hands for kitchen work, and every night my mom put skin whitening cream all over my face so I could be beautiful. And other than the secret starvation, I was the perfect daughter. I played the part with 0 complaints, and always talked about how excited I was to have kids. But when I was 14 and still periodless, I found something that changed everything. For context, we were in the USA the whole time, lol. My mom had just convinced us that all of this was normal, and that any girl who didn't do this was bound to die alone, as well as being ugly and useless. Until one teacher forced me to have a meeting with her, because I had accidentally worn a t-shirt to school, and she saw how skinny I was. When she walked out to go to the bathroom, she had forgotten to lock her drawer. Inside were books about marriage laws, pamphlets with titles like Your Rights as a Young Teenager and When Culture Becomes Crime. As I read, my jaw dropped. It was the first time I had been introduced to the idea that marriage under 18 was wrong. No cultural exceptions, no parental consent loopholes. I stole the thinnest pamphlet, hiding it in my waistband. Over the next few weeks, when my parents thought I was asleep, I memorized every page. Phone numbers for CPS, shelter addresses, the exact words that would trigger a mandatory report. I learned that teachers, counselors, and doctors had to report suspected abuse by law. So I started a wife skills group in my uncle's tool shed. 6 younger cousins who hadn't bled yet, all desperate to avoid their fate. There, I taught them what I'd learned. Which teachers were mandated reporters, how to say the words that would trigger an investigation. We practiced in whispers. They're forcing me to marry. I'm only 13. Please help. And at 15, my body betrayed me. The blood came during morning food prep, soaking through my white dress. My mother's scream of joy brought every woman in the house running. They were practically beaming with joy, kissed my cheeks, told me I was lucky. By nightfall, my father had already chosen my husband, Hamoud Habibi, a construction mogul who'd buried 2 of his wives once they turned 23. Kidney failure, the death certificate said. The women whispered it was from too many pregnancies too young. 2 days later, my cousin Anya, a girl from the shed, got her period too. Within hours, she was promised to a 51-year-old who collected wives like trophies, who had 8 children older than her. I watched the light drain from her eyes as they discussed her bride price like she was livestock. That night, I slipped her my notebook. Every shelter number, every legal fact, every escape route I'd memorized. Tomorrow, I whispered, tell the science teacher, use the exact words I taught you. Her hands shook as she took it. What about you? My wedding's not for 2 weeks. I'll figure something out, I responded, voice shaking. But I was wrong, because that night, there was a knock at the door. It was CPS. My father's face went from confusion to fury as they asked about Anya, about underage brides, about forced marriages. They needed to speak to all the girls in the family under 18. The moment they left, the family circled like wolves. In their eyes, someone had been teaching the girls lies. Someone had poisoned their innocent minds with Western propaganda. They turned the house upside down, looking for the culprit. Well, my journal was found hidden in the tool shed within an hour, and it was filled with phone numbers and legal statutes. My father burned it in front of everyone while calling me diseased, contaminated, and, my personal favorite, a cancer that needed to be cut out. The wedding is tomorrow, he announced, before she destroys anyone else. Dawn came too fast. In an hour, they would come to dress me in red and gold, to deliver me to a man who'd unalived 2 girls already. My stomach churned as footsteps approached my door. I grabbed the plastic bag I'd hidden days ago, stuffed with only the essentials, a change of clothes, the shelter addresses I'd memorized and rewritten, and the $20 I'd stolen from my mother's purse over months, $1 at a time. The door handle turned. I clutched my stomach and doubled over, letting out a groan that wasn't entirely fake. My mother entered, already dressed in her finest clothes for my wedding day. Get up, she commanded. The beautician arrives in 30 minutes. I groaned louder, pressing my hands against my abdomen. Mama, something's wrong. My stomach. She frowned, approaching cautiously. In our culture, a sick bride was a bad omen. What did you eat? Nothing, I gasped, stumbling toward the door. I need the bathroom. Now. She grabbed my arm. You went 20 minutes ago. Please, I begged, letting tears stream down my face. The fear made it easy. It hurts so bad. She released me with disgust. 5 minutes. The aunties are waiting. I stumbled down the hall, clutching the hidden bag under my loose nightgown. Once inside the bathroom, I locked the door and immediately stood on the toilet seat. The ceiling tile I'd loosened weeks ago shifted easily. I shoved the bag inside, then actually used the toilet to make the sounds convincing. 3 minutes passed. I flushed, ran water, then groaned loudly again. Mama, I can't stop. My stomach. Her fist pounded the door. Open this door. I can't, I cried, standing on the toilet again. The small window above it had been painted shut years ago, but I'd been working at it with a butter knife stolen from the kitchen. Please, just another minute. More pounding. Multiple voices now. My aunts had joined her. I pushed the window frame with all my strength. The paint cracked, then gave way. Cool morning air rushed in. The opening was tiny, meant for ventilation, not escape. But months of starvation had made me small enough. She's taking too long, my father's voice boomed. Break it down. I grabbed my bag from the ceiling and shoved it through the window first. Then I pulled myself up, shoulders scraping against the frame. The door shook as bodies slammed against it. My hips stuck. I bit my tongue to keep from crying out, twisting sideways. The lock splintered just as my legs cleared the window. I dropped 6 feet onto wet grass, ankle twisting but not breaking. Behind me, shouts erupted from the bathroom. I ran, barefoot, nightgown flapping. I sprinted across our backyard and into the neighbors. Dogs barked. Motion lights flickered on. I kept running. Our neighborhood was a maze of identical houses filled with families from our community. Any of them would return me without question. I cut through the Hassan's yard, past the Mahmoud's pool, around the Saleh's garden shed. A car engine roared to life behind me, then another. They'd mobilized fast. I ducked behind the Abdullah's garbage bins as headlights swept past. My cousin Omar's voice carried through the morning air. Check every street. She couldn't have gone far. The main road was 3 blocks away. The bus stop 4. I'd mapped this route 100 times in my head, but never barefoot. Never with my heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode. I darted between houses, using parked cars as cover. My feet left bloody prints on the concrete. A piece of glass embedded itself in my heel, but I couldn't stop to remove it. There! My cousin Kareem's shout came from the left. A car screeched around the corner. I dove through Mrs. Chen's rose bushes, thorns tearing at my nightgown and skin. She wasn't from our community. Maybe she wouldn't recognize me. I limped across her backyard and into the alley behind. The bus stop came into view just as the morning bus pulled up. I burst from between buildings, waving frantically. The driver, an older black woman, took one look at my bloody feet and torn nightgown and held the door. I climbed the steps and froze. No money. In my panic, I'd left the $20 in the bag. Please, I whispered. I just need to get downtown. I'll pay you back. I promise. An elderly woman in the front seat stood up, pressing exact change into the machine. Sit down, child, she said softly. She didn't ask questions, just guided me to the seat beside her and handed me tissues from her purse. The bus pulled away just as Omar's car skidded into the parking lot. I ducked below the window, but not before seeing his face twisted with rage. The woman beside me shifted slightly, blocking me from view. We rode in silence until downtown, where she pressed a $10 bill into my hand before getting off. Whatever you're running from, she whispered, don't go back. The courthouse was a massive building I'd only seen from car windows. I limped through the metal detectors, leaving bloody footprints on the marble floor. Security guards exchanged glances but didn't stop me. The family court clerk, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, took one look at me and came around the counter. Honey, do you need medical attention? Emergency protective order. I gasped out the words I'd memorized. I'm 15. They're forcing me to marry. Today, please. She guided me to a chair and brought forms. Where are you staying? We need an address for the order. I recited the shelter address from memory, praying they'd have space when I got there. My phone, forgotten in my bag, began ringing. Mom, then Dad, then Omar, then numbers I didn't recognize. The voicemails piled up without me listening. I knew what they'd say. Dishonor, shame, curse, cancer. The clerk helped me fill out the paperwork, her face growing grimmer with each detail. Previous wives dead at 23. Kidney failure from too many pregnancies. Forced marriage ceremony scheduled for today. Wait here, she said, disappearing into a back office. She returned with a judge who read my petition right there in the lobby. Granted, he said. Emergency order effective immediately. The full hearing will be in 2 weeks. I clutched the paper like a lifeline and limped back outside. The shelter was 12 blocks away. I made it 3 before remembering they might not have beds. The phone call confirmed my fear. We're completely full, the voice said. We can put you on a wait list for Thursday. Thursday, 3 days away. I had nowhere to go for 3 days. That's when I remembered Ms. Rodriguez, my teacher who'd shown me those pamphlets, who'd forgotten to lock her drawer that day. Maybe she hadn't forgotten at all. 3 buses and 2 hours later, I stood outside Jefferson High School. Saturday meant it should be empty, but her car was in the parking lot. I'd noticed she came in on weekends sometimes, grading papers in the quiet. I found her in her classroom, red pen in hand, stack of essays beside her. She looked up and dropped the pen. Oh my God. She was around the desk in seconds, taking in my bloody feet, torn nightgown, the protective order clutched in my fist. Sit, don't move. She returned with the school nurse's first aid kit and began cleaning my feet. Only then did I start crying. Real tears this time, not the fake ones from the bathroom. They were going to make me marry him today, I sobbed. He unalived 2 wives already. I got the order but the shelter's full and I have nowhere to go and they're looking for me. She pulled out her phone. CPS emergency line. They have to place you somewhere safe. But the voice on the other end wasn't encouraging. 15. We need more evidence of immediate danger. A protective order based on claims isn't enough. Has she been physically harmed? Ms. Rodriguez's face darkened. She has glass in her feet from running barefoot. She's covered in cuts. Self-inflicted during escape doesn't count. We need evidence of abuse from the family. My phone rang again. This time Ms. Rodriguez answered it. Hello? Her face went pale. Mr. Habibi? No, your daughter isn't. What? No, she's... I heard my father's voice through the speaker, calm and reasonable. His business voice. The one he used to convince people he was a respectable man. She's sick, he was saying. Mental problems. She needs her medication. We're very worried. Ms. Rodriguez hung up. How did he know you were here? My phone. Of course. They were tracking my location. Delete everything, she said. Factory reset. Now. As I wiped my phone, she made more calls. CPS supervisors, social workers, legal aid. Each one said the same thing. Without immediate physical danger or better evidence, their hands were tied. That's when we heard car doors slam slamming in the parking lot. Ms. Rodriguez locked the classroom door and pulled the blinds. Stay quiet. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple sets. Male voices speaking in Arabic, then English. We know she's here, my father called out. Her phone showed this location. She's sick. She needs help. They tried the door handle, knocked politely at first, then harder. I'm calling 911, Ms. Rodriguez whispered, but I grabbed her hand. Wait, let me try something first. I rolled up my sleeves, showing her the circular scars from the pot training, the bruises from this morning's struggle when my mother had tried to force me into the wedding dress. Then I lifted my nightgown just enough to show the belt marks across my back from years of Friday morning service training. Her hands shook as she took photos with her phone. Why didn't you show anyone before? I thought it was normal, I whispered, until I read your pamphlets. She called 911. There are multiple men trying to break into my classroom. I have a student with me who's in danger. Please hurry. The pounding on the door intensified. Then my uncle's voice. We have her medication. She's bipolar, schizophrenic. She makes up stories. Check the parking lot cameras, I told Ms. Rodriguez urgently. I came alone. If they have medication, they brought it with them. She called the school security office, explaining rapidly. The security guard, Mr. Williams, said he was pulling up the footage. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The pounding stopped. Footsteps retreated quickly. By the time officers arrived, my father had transformed. Gone was the angry man beating down doors. In his place stood a concerned parent in an expensive suit, holding prescription bottles with my name on them. Thank God you're here, he told the officers. My daughter is very sick. She has delusions. Makes up terrible stories about our family. The officers separated us for questioning. One stayed with me and Ms. Rodriguez, while two others spoke with my father and uncles in the hallway. She's never been on medication, Ms. Rodriguez insisted. I've been her teacher for 2 years. Look at these injuries. The officer looked at my feet, the cuts, the bruises. Could be self-inflicted, he said slowly. If she was having an episode, check when those prescriptions were filled, I said suddenly. If I'm so sick, why am I not in the system? Why no doctor visits? No therapy? Ms. Rodriguez pulled out her laptop. I have essays she wrote, months of them, about family traditions, cultural expectations. They document everything subtly. She'd kept them. Every essay where I'd hidden truths between the lines, writing about traditional cooking lessons when I meant burning my hands, describing preparing for marriage when I meant beatings for making eye contact. The officer read them, frowning deeper with each page. Meanwhile, Mr. Williams arrived with security footage on his phone. It clearly showed my father and uncles arriving with the prescription bottles already in hand. Anya, I said suddenly, call Anya Mansour. She made a report yesterday. She knows everything. But when Ms. Rodriguez searched for Anya's family, she found they'd moved out of state that very morning. No forwarding address. Phone disconnected. My father must have sensed the tide turning because his calm facade cracked. He began speaking rapidly in Arabic to my uncles, gesturing angrily. What's he saying? The officer asked. He's telling them to call the family lawyer, I translated, and saying something about the dowry being non-refundable. That was his mistake. Mentioning the dowry. The officer's expression hardened. Sir, what dowry? My father's face went still. I misspoke. My English. Your English seemed fine 5 minutes ago, the officer noted. The next hour blurred together. More police arrived. A CPS emergency supervisor. Someone from the district attorney's office. My father alternated between threats of lawsuits and pleas about family honor. My uncles invoked religious freedom and parental rights. But the evidence was mounting. The essays, the injuries, the fake prescriptions, the security footage, the emergency protective order I'd filed that morning. She's a minor who's made credible allegations of abuse and forced marriage, the CPS supervisor finally declared. We're placing her in emergency protective custody. My father erupted. He lunged toward me, screaming in Arabic about dishonor and curses. 2 officers restrained him while he spat threats about what happened to girls who betrayed their families. Ms. Rodriguez held my hand as they led him away. The emergency placement coordinator arrived within 20 minutes. A tired-looking woman named Margaret who'd clearly been pulled from her weekend. She took one look at my feet and immediately called for medical transport. We need to get those cuts cleaned properly, she said, helping me into a wheelchair. The glass needs to come out before infection sets in. Ms. Rodriguez squeezed my shoulder. I'll follow you to the hospital. You're not alone. The emergency room was chaos. Saturday afternoon meant sports injuries and accidents filled every bed. A nurse triaged me quickly, noting the glass embedded in my heel and the various cuts that needed attention. As she worked, Margaret made phone calls trying to find placement. Yes, I understand you're full, she said into her phone. This is an emergency removal, cultural marriage situation. No, she can't go to regular foster. Yes, she needs specialized placement. Each call ended the same way. No beds, no space, no availability for high-risk cultural cases. Ms. Rodriguez paced the small curtained area. There has to be somewhere. What about safe houses? Women's shelters? All full, Margaret sighed. Weekend placements are always difficult, and cases like this, she lowered her voice. Families often try to retrieve the girls. We need somewhere secure. The doctor arrived to remove the glass, injecting local anesthetic before beginning the delicate work. I bit my lip, less from pain and more from fear. Every minute without placement was another minute my family had to find me. Wait, Mrs. Rodriguez said suddenly. I know someone, a retired nurse who used to work with the district. She's done emergency placements before. Margaret perked up. Is she certified? Let me call. Ms. Rodriguez stepped outside, returning minutes later with a small smile. Theodora Whitman. She's certified for emergency placement and has experience with cultural transition cases. She can take her tonight. Relief flooded through me as Margaret began the paperwork. The doctor finished bandaging my feet, prescribing antibiotics to prevent infection. As we prepared to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You have dishonored us all. This is not over. I showed it to Margaret, who documented it immediately. We'll need to change your number, and you'll need to be careful about social media. Any way they might track you. The ride to Theodora's house took took 40 minutes, winding through unfamiliar neighborhoods far from my community. Ms. Rodriguez followed in her car, refusing to leave until she knew I was safe. The house was modest but well kept, with security cameras visible at every corner and a tall fence surrounding the property. Theodora met us at the door, a sturdy woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and gentle hands. She took in my bandaged feet and exhausted face with the practiced assessment of a nurse. "Come in, dear. Let's get you settled." The inside was warm and comfortable, nothing like the cold marble and gold fixtures of my family's house. She showed me to a small bedroom with a lock on the inside of the door. "For your peace of mind," she said simply. "The windows have alarms, and I have motion sensors around the property. You're safe here." Margaret finished the paperwork while Ms. Rodriguez helped me unpack my meager belongings. Before leaving, my teacher pressed a card into my hand. "My personal number. Call anytime, day or night." That first night, I barely slept. Every car passing made me tense. Every shadow could be an uncle or cousin coming to drag me back. Theodora found me sitting by the window at 3 a.m. watching the street. "They came for the last girl too," she said quietly, settling into the chair beside me. "3 brothers and a father stood right at that gate, demanding I return their property." She smiled grimly. "The police response time to this address is under 2 minutes. I made sure of that." Sunday passed in a blur of safety planning. Theodora helped me set up a new phone with a number known only to her, Margaret, and Ms. Rodriguez. We went through scenarios: what to do if someone approached me, how to vary my routes, which neighbors could be trusted in an emergency. "Tomorrow we'll need to register you for school in this district," she said. "Under a protective order, you can't return to Jefferson High." The thought of starting over was terrifying, but staying hidden was more important than familiar hallways. Monday morning brought the first test. Theodora's doorbell rang at 6 a.m., the security monitor showing my aunt and 2 female cousins. They carried containers of food and wore concerned expressions. "We know she's here," my aunt called through the intercom. "We just want to talk. Her grandmother is sick with worry." Theodora didn't even respond, just called the police non-emergency line. "Yes, the subjects from the protective order are at my property. Thank you." They left before the patrol car arrived, but not before my cousin held up a sign to the camera. "We love you. Come home." The manipulation had begun. That afternoon, Margaret called with updates. "Your father has hired a lawyer. They're claiming parental alienation and demanding your return." Can they do that? They can try. But with the protective order and CPS involvement, it's unlikely. Still, you need to be prepared for a fight. Tuesday brought flowers. An enormous bouquet appeared on the doorstep with a card. "Our hearts are broken. Please forgive us. Love, Mama." Theodora photographed everything before disposing of them. "Document everything," she reminded me. "Every contact, every attempt." I started at the new school Wednesday, enrolled under special circumstances that kept my records sealed. The counselor, informed of my situation, assigned me a buddy and arranged for me to eat lunch in the library if needed. "We've had similar cases," she assured me. "Your safety is our priority." But safety felt fragile when I saw a familiar car in the parking lot after school. Not my father's. He was too smart for that. But one of my uncle's work trucks, parked where anyone leaving would have to pass. I ducked back inside, calling Theodora from the counselor's office. She arrived within minutes, parking directly in front of the truck and walking me to her car while recording everything on her phone. "Let them know we see them," she said. "Let them know we're not afraid." Thursday's mail brought legal documents. My father was petitioning for my return, claiming I'd been brainwashed by outside influences and was in danger of losing my cultural identity. Margaret connected me with a lawyer from Legal Aid, a fierce woman named Patricia who specialized in these cases. "Standard tactics," Patricia said, reviewing the papers. "They'll claim religious freedom, parental rights, cultural preservation. We'll counter with child welfare, documented abuse, and your own testimony. Will I have to see them in court? Not if I can help it, but you need to be prepared for that possibility." Friday morning, the real escalation began. Theodora woke me early, her face grim. "Check your social media. Don't log in, just look." On a borrowed laptop, she showed me my father's public Facebook post. My photo, alongside a desperate plea: "Please help us find our daughter. She is mentally ill and needs medication. She was taken by people filling her head with lies. We fear for her safety." The comments were already pouring in. Family friends offering prayers, community members sharing the post. Some even offered rewards for information. "This is witness intimidation," Patricia said when we called her. "He's trying to control the narrative. We need to respond carefully." But the damage was spreading. By afternoon, the post had been shared hundreds of times. My photo was circulating in community WhatsApp groups with warnings about the sick girl who needs help. Then came the first real betrayal. One of the girls from my wife's skills group, my younger cousin Margie, who I'd tried to protect, posted a video response. In it, she sat primly beside her mother, reciting clearly rehearsed lines. She told us terrible lies about our family, said our parents wanted to hurt us. She made us scared of our own culture. "Please, if you see her, help bring her home so she can get help." My heart shattered watching her vacant eyes, knowing the pressure she must have faced to record those words. Theodora held me while I cried. "They're using everything you love against you, but that doesn't make what you did wrong." Saturday brought an unexpected visitor. The doorbell camera showed a young woman I didn't recognize, holding an envelope. "I'm from the law office," she called. "I have documents for the minor child." Theodora was suspicious. "Leave them in the mailbox. I'll retrieve them." But as the woman turned to go, I caught her profile and gasped. It was my cousin Sarah, 3 years older than me, wearing a wig and business clothes. "Don't go out there," Theodora warned, but I was already at the window. Sarah looked up, meeting my eyes. For a moment, her mask slipped and I saw tears. Then she composed herself, placed the envelope in the mailbox, and walked away quickly. The envelope contained photos. My grandmother, looking frail. My little sister at her birthday party. My chair conspicuously empty. My mother crying while cooking my favorite dish. Each image carefully chosen to maximize guilt. But the last photo made my blood run cold. It was Anya, back from wherever they'd hidden her. She stood between her parents, wearing an engagement ring, her eyes dead. On the back, someone had written, "She came home. She's happy now. You could be too." "They brought her back," I whispered. "They're going to make her marry him anyway." Patricia cursed when we called her. "This complicates things. If Anya recants her statement, she won't," I said firmly. "Look at her eyes. She's terrified. Fear doesn't matter if she won't testify to it." Sunday's attack was more direct. Theodora's neighbor called to report men photographing the house from across the street. By the time police arrived, they were gone, but the message was clear. "We know where you are." "Maybe we should move you," Margaret suggested during an emergency meeting, but Theodora shook her head. "Running tells them they're winning. We stay. We document. We fight." Monday morning brought the court hearing for the permanent protective order. Patricia had prepared me carefully, but nothing could have prepared me for walking into that courtroom. My entire extended family filled one side. Aunts, uncles, cousins, community leaders, all in their finest clothes, all staring at me with mixtures of pity and disgust. My parents sat in the front row, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. I took my seat beside Patricia, trying not to shake. My father's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a loving family torn apart by Western corruption. He presented character witnesses, the imam from our mosque, family friends, even my old pediatrician who testified I'd never shown signs of abuse during checkups. Because I was never allowed to be alone with him, I whispered to Patricia. My mother always answered for me. When our turn came, Patricia presented the evidence methodically. The photos of my injuries, the essays documenting years of preparation for forced marriage, the security footage of my father arriving with fake prescriptions. Then she called Ms. Rodriguez to testify. My teacher took the stand calmly, but I could see her hands shaking slightly. She described finding me reading the pamphlets, my weight loss over the years, the essays that had concerned her. "Did you ever report these concerns?" my father's lawyer asked on cross-examination. I tried to build trust first. I thought if she felt safe, so you didn't report. You didn't follow mandatory reporting laws. I reported when I had concrete evidence. After allegedly influencing her with anti-cultural propaganda, Patricia objected, but the damage was done. They were painting Ms. Rodriguez as the manipulator, the one who'd planted these ideas. When it was my turn to testify, Patricia had me focus on facts, the burn scars, the beatings, the men my cousins had been promised to, Hamoud Habibi's dead wives. "These are serious allegations," the judge said. "Do you have proof of these deaths?" "The death certificates are public record," Patricia responded. "Both women died of kidney failure before age 23. Both had multiple pregnancies." My father's lawyer stood. "Kidney failure is a medical condition, unless you're alleging my client murdered these women." "I'm alleging a pattern," Patricia countered. "Young brides, multiple pregnancies, early deaths, and now they want to give him another child to—" "Objection!" my father's lawyer shouted. "Counsel is making inflammatory statements without evidence." The judge called for order, but I could see doubt creeping into his expression. Without Anya's testimony, without concrete proof of forced marriage beyond my word. That's when the courtroom doors opened. A woman entered, followed by a CPS worker. She was young, maybe 25, wearing a hijab and walking with a slight limp. "Your Honor," the CPS worker said, "this witness has information relevant to the case." My father went rigid. My mother gasped. The woman took the stand, stating her name as Fatima Habibi. "I was Hamoud Habibi's first wife," she said quietly. "I didn't die." The courtroom erupted. My father's lawyer objected frantically while my family whispered furiously among themselves. "I was 15 when I married him," Fatima continued once order was restored. "By 20, I'd had 4 children and my kidneys were failing. My family told everyone I died, but a nurse at the hospital helped me escape. I've been in hiding for 5 years." She looked directly at me. "When I saw the Facebook posts about you, I knew I had to come forward. I couldn't let him do to another girl what he did to me." Her testimony was devastating. The pregnancies forced too close together. The beatings when she couldn't conceive fast enough. The way her family had known but prioritized reputation over her life. "They would rather tell people I died than admit their daughter left her husband," she said. "That's what awaits girls who try to escape. Death or erasure." My father's lawyer tried to discredit her, but she'd brought medical records, proof of her injuries, documentation of her kidney damage from multiple pregnancies, even photos of the fake grave her family had created. When the judge finally ruled, his decision was clear. The protective order would be permanent. My parents would have no contact. Any violation would result in criminal charges. My father stood as we prepared to leave. "You are no daughter of mine," he said in Arabic. "You are dead to us." "Sit down, sir," the judge warned. But my mother was standing too, removing her hijab in a gesture of ultimate rejection. "We have no daughter," she announced. "She died today." The walk out of that courtroom felt like walking through fire. Family members turned their backs as I passed. Some spat at the ground. Others muttered curses. But Fatima caught my arm gently. "You're not alone," she whispered. "There are more of us than they want to admit." Outside, Theodora waited with the car running. As we drove away, I saw my family gathering on the courthouse steps, my father gesturing angrily while on his phone. "It's not over," Patricia warned. "They'll try other tactics. Stay vigilant." She was right. Within days, the harassment evolved. Since they couldn't contact me directly, they found other ways. My old social media accounts, which I'd deactivated, were hacked and reactivated with posts about mental illness and cries for help. Photos of me were edited to look unstable and shared widely. Community businesses where Theodora shopped began refusing her service. "We don't want trouble," one shop owner told her apologetically. "Your foster girl. Her family is powerful." Then came the lawyers. Not criminal this time. Civil. Lawsuits for defamation, for emotional distress, for alienation of affection. Each one baseless but expensive to fight. "They're trying to bankrupt us into submission," Patricia explained. "It's a common tactic." But the worst came through other girls. Videos began appearing online. Cousins and family friends describing how I'd corrupted them with dangerous ideas. Each testimony carefully crafted to paint me as a predator who targeted young girls. She told us our parents wanted to sell us, one cousin said to the camera, made us afraid of our own families. I recognized the coaching in their stilted words, the fear behind their eyes. These were girls I'd tried to save, now being used as weapons against me. Theodora increased security after we found footprints in the garden one morning. The police couldn't prove anything, but we knew someone had been watching the house. Maybe you should consider the witness protection program, Margaret suggested during a particularly bad week. But I thought of Fatima, hiding for 5 years, of all the other girls still trapped. Running meant abandoning them. No, I decided. I stay. I fight. I show them it's possible. The next challenge came from an unexpected source. A woman appeared at Theodora's door claiming to be from a cultural mediation service. We specialize in family reconciliation, she said smoothly. Perhaps we could arrange a supervised meeting. Theodora shut the door in her face, but the woman left pamphlets about the tragedy of cultural disconnection and the importance of family unity. Similar approaches followed. A therapist who specialized in cultural reintegration, a religious leader offering to mediate, even a distant relative I barely knew, claiming my grandmother was dying and begging for one last visit. Each attempt was documented, reported, and rejected, but they were wearing us down. Then Patricia called with unexpected news. Anya wants to meet with you. My heart leaped, then sank. Is it a trap? I don't know. She contacted me through her own lawyer, says she has information you need to hear. The meeting was arranged at Patricia's office with security present. When Anya walked in, I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her eyes were dull, and she moved like something was broken inside her. They made me come back, she whispered once we were alone. Said they'd hurt my little sister if I didn't. Anya, I'm so sorry. Listen, she interrupted urgently. There's something you need to know. They're planning something. I heard my father talking. They've given up on getting you back. That's good. No, her eyes filled with tears. Now they want to make an example of you, to show other girls what happens when you betray the family. What do you mean? I don't know exactly, but I heard them mention your new school, and something about sending a message that everyone will understand. My blood went cold. When? Soon. Maybe this week. I'm sorry. I don't know more. They don't trust me now. She gripped my hands. Be careful. Change everything. Don't follow patterns. They've been watching, learning your routines. Security escorted her out quickly, but not before she pressed a small piece of paper into my palm, an address. Other girls, she mouthed silently, help them. That night, Theodora and I made plans. I would take a few days off school, vary my schedule, never be alone. But we underestimated their determination. Wednesday morning, I was in the kitchen when Theodora's security alarm triggered. Not the perimeter alarm, the window sensor in my bedroom. Lock yourself in the bathroom, Theodora commanded, already on the phone with 911. I ran, hearing glass breaking behind me, male voices shouting in Arabic. Not my father or uncles. They were too smart to come themselves. These were hired men, distant relatives or community members willing to do the dirty work. The bathroom door was solid wood with a good lock, but it wouldn't hold forever. I could hear them searching, calling my name, promising they just wanted to talk. Police are 3 minutes out, Theodora called through the door. Hold on! The doorknob rattled, then harder pounding. They'd found me. Come out, girl. Don't make this harder. Your family misses you. I pressed myself against the far wall, looking for anything to defend myself with. A can of hairspray, scissors in the drawer, not much against grown men. The door frame began to splinter. One more hit and they'd be through. Then sirens. Beautiful, blessed sirens screaming down our street. The pounding stopped. Footsteps running, doors slamming. By the time police entered, the men were gone, leaving only broken glass and muddy footprints. We need to move you tonight, Margaret said, arriving within the hour. This placement is compromised. As I packed my few belongings, I thought about Anya's warning, about the address she'd given me, about all the girls still trapped, still believing they had no choice. I want to do something first, I told Theodora. Before we go, I need to make a call. I dialed Ms. Rodriguez's number. Remember those pamphlets? I think it's time we made more. A lot more. Because they could move me, threaten me, hunt me, but they couldn't silence the knowledge I'd spread. Every girl who learned her rights was a victory they couldn't undo. The war for my freedom wasn't over. But as we drove away from Theodora's compromised safe house toward another placement, I carried with me something more powerful than fear. The certainty that I'd already won the battle that mattered most. I'd proven it was possible to say no, to choose differently, to survive their rejection and build a new life. And that message, that hope, would spread to other girls whether my family wanted it to or not. The new safe house was 40 miles away, a small apartment above a retired police officer's garage. Margaret explained he'd done this before, housing girls whose families wouldn't stop hunting them. The security was even tighter than Theodora's. Motion sensors, cameras, panic buttons in every room. I spent the first night staring at the address Anya had given me, a house number in a neighborhood I recognized, where another cluster of our community lived. More girls who needed to know their options. Ms. Rodriguez visited the next morning with boxes of supplies. We'd decided to create information packets, not just pamphlets, but detailed guides hidden inside school notebooks, phone numbers written as math problems, legal information disguised as history homework. We'll distribute them through the school nurses, she explained. They're mandatory reporters and can identify at-risk students. While we worked, Patricia called with updates. The men who'd broken into Theodora's house had been identified through fingerprints, distant cousins from my father's side. Warrants were issued, but they'd already fled the state. Your family's also filed an appeal on the protective order, she added. They're claiming religious discrimination. The packets took 3 days to prepare. Each one contained a hidden pocket with emergency numbers, legal rights information, and step-by-step escape plans. We made 50, knowing most would be thrown away by suspicious parents. But if even one reached a girl who needed it. Thursday brought a new development. A social worker arrived with a teenage girl, her eyes wide with fear. She was from a different family in our community, but her story was familiar. Promised to a 47-year-old man. Her period had come last week. I found your notebook, she whispered to me, hidden in my cousin's room. The one with the math problems that were really phone numbers. My heart soared. The information was already spreading beyond my reach. Margaret arranged for her emergency placement while I sat with her, explaining what would happen next. The fear in her eyes slowly shifted to determination as she realized she had options. That night, my new phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Don't hang up, a young voice said quickly. I'm calling from a friend's phone. We're 6 girls. We found your information. We need help. I grabbed a pen, writing down everything as she spoke in rushed whispers. 6 girls, ages 12 to 16. 3 already promised to older men. They met in secret, sharing the notebook pages they'd found. Can you get to teachers? Counselors? I asked. We're trying, but our parents watch us constantly now. After what you did, they're all scared. I gave her specific phrases to use, teachers' names at different schools who would respond, made her repeat the emergency numbers back to me, told her about the security cameras at the courthouse, how to file emergency orders. What if they catch us? She asked, voice trembling. Then you try again, I said firmly, and again, until you're free. Friday morning, Patricia called with urgent news. Your father's lawyer filed an emergency motion. They're claiming you're recruiting minors into dangerous situations. They want criminal charges filed. For teaching girls their legal rights? They're calling it corruption of minors, interference with parental rights. It won't stick, but it's meant to scare you into silence. But I was done being scared into silence. That afternoon, I met with a journalist Ms. Rodriguez knew, someone who specialized in human rights stories. She'd agreed to write about the underground network of girls sharing information, protecting their identities while exposing the practice. No photos, no real names, she promised, but people need to know this is happening here, in America. The article wouldn't run for weeks, but just knowing it would exist felt like victory. Saturday's mail brought a surprise, a package with no return address, postmarked from another state. Inside were photos and a letter in shaky handwriting. The photos showed a young woman in nursing scrubs, smiling at a graduation ceremony. The letter was from Fatima. I wanted you to see what's possible, she wrote. 5 years of hiding, but I built a life, became a nurse, found love with someone who sees my worth beyond being someone's property. Stay strong. I cried holding those photos, seeing proof that survival could lead to more than just survival. Sunday was quiet until evening, when Margaret called. 3 more girls came forward today, different families all citing the information packets. CPS is opening investigations. The backlash was swift. Monday morning, my father's lawyer held a press conference on the courthouse steps. He painted me as a troubled teen destroying families, corrupting innocent children with Western ideology. Several community leaders stood behind him, nodding gravely. She targets vulnerable young girls, he said to the cameras, fills their heads with lies about loving families who only want to preserve their culture. Patricia was ready with our own response. She'd gathered statements from teachers, social workers, and counselors who'd seen the pattern for years but hadn't known how to help. The retired officer I was staying with even agreed to speak, describing the lengths families went to retrieve girls. But the real blow came Tuesday. A video surfaced online, Margie again, but this time she wasn't alone. 4 other girls from my wife skills group sat with her, all reciting how I'd tried to turn them against their families. She said our parents were evil, one girl stated flatly, said our culture was wrong, made us hate who we are. I recognized the coaching, the careful word choices, but to outsiders, it looked damning. Don't watch anymore, the retired officer advised, closing the laptop. They're trying to break you. Wednesday, everything accelerated. Patricia called early. The journalist editor had received legal threats about the article. My father's lawyer was claiming defamation, threatening massive lawsuits. Then Margaret arrived with news that made my blood run cold. One of the girls who called you last week. Her family found out. They're moving her out of state tomorrow. Which one? I asked, though I already knew. It would be the oldest, the bravest, the one most likely to run. Samira, 16. She was supposed to meet with a counselor today. I thought fast. The courthouse. If she can get there before they leave. Margaret was already calling, alerting authorities. But we all knew the statistics. Once girls were moved across state lines, they rarely resurfaced. That afternoon, I made a decision. Despite everyone's protests, I insisted on going to the courthouse. Not inside, that was too dangerous, but nearby, where Samira might see me if she managed to escape. The retired officer drove, parking where we could watch the building. For 2 hours, nothing. Then a van pulled up, and I saw her, Samira, pressed between 2 ants, being walked toward the entrance. Not for protection, for passport documentation. They were taking her out of the country. She saw me through the car window. Our eyes met for just a moment. I pressed my hand against the glass, mouthing one word, run. She didn't run, couldn't, with her ants gripping her arms, but as they passed the security checkpoint, she did something else. Dropped to the ground, screaming about stomach pain. Classic move from my playbook. Security responded, calling for medical help. In the chaos, Samira managed to grab an officer's arm. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw his expression change. He spoke into his radio, and suddenly more officers appeared. Her aunts tried to pull her up, insisting she was fine, but Samira kept screaming, kept holding the officer's arm. Within minutes, CPS workers arrived. We need to go, the officer said, starting the engine. Now. As we drove away, I saw my uncle emerging from the van, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing furiously. They'd lost another one. Thursday was a blur of legal meetings. Patricia was building a case against the intimidation tactics, documenting every threat, every harassment attempt. The journalist had found a publisher willing to risk the lawsuits, and more girls were coming forward, not just from my community, but from others who'd heard whispers of the network. You started something, Patricia said, something they can't stop. Friday morning, I woke to sirens. Not unusual in this neighborhood, but these stopped close. Too close. The retired officer was already up, checking cameras. Stay back, he ordered, hand on his service weapon. Through the window, I saw flames flames. A car in the parking lot was burning. Not his car, one that hadn't been there last night. As firefighters worked, police found something in the trunk. Dolls dressed in white wedding dresses, burned beyond recognition. The message was clear. "We're moving you again," Margaret said when she arrived. "Today." But I was tired of running. "No, they want me scared, hidden. I'm done giving them what they want." The argument lasted hours. Finally, we compromised. I'd stay, but with increased security. Off-duty officers would rotate shifts. Panic buttons linked directly to 911, and I'd vary my location, never sleeping in the same place twice. Saturday's news brought unexpected hope. The article had been published online early, going viral within hours. Comments poured in from women who'd escaped similar situations, offering support and resources. Organizations I'd never heard of reached out, wanting to help expand the information network. But the best message came from Anya. A single text from an unknown number. 12 girls in 3 states now have the notebooks. They're making copies. You did it. Sunday was quiet, but I knew it was the calm before something. My family wouldn't accept this level of defiance without a final move. It came Monday morning. Not violence this time, but something worse in their eyes. A formal announcement in the community newsletter. I had been officially disowned, not just by my parents, but by the entire extended family. My name was to be erased from family trees, my photos removed from homes. Anyone who spoke to me would face the same fate. In their world, it was worse than death. It was complete erasure. But as I read the announcement, I felt something unexpected. Relief. They'd played their final card, and I was still standing. Tuesday brought a flood of responses. Girls who'd been watching, waiting, saw that the worst punishment hadn't destroyed me. 3 more emergency orders were filed that day. 2 girls made it to shelters. One was caught but managed to tell teachers before her family could move her. Wednesday, I met with the organization leaders who'd reached out. They wanted to formalize the network, create a proper support system with legal backing and safe houses specifically for these situations. "We'll call it the Freedom Network," one woman said, "hidden in plain sight like your notebooks." Thursday was my court date for the permanent protective order renewal. I walked in to find the courtroom packed. Not with my family this time, they'd given up that fight, but with girls and women who'd escaped, social workers who'd helped them, teachers who'd noticed the signs. My father's lawyer made one last attempt, arguing that the disownment proved the family wanted no contact. The judge shut him down quickly. "Disownment doesn't erase threats made or crimes committed," she stated firmly. "The order stands." As we left court, Fatima was waiting outside. She'd driven 3 hours to be there, to show me I wasn't alone. We didn't need words, just hugged while photographers captured the moment. 2 girls who'd refused to disappear. Friday, the Freedom Network held its first official meeting. 15 volunteers, including Ms. Rodriguez and Theodora. We planned distribution routes for information packets, safe house locations, emergency response protocols. What had started with stolen pamphlets was becoming something real. That night, my phone rang. Another unknown number. Another girl, voice shaking with fear and hope. "I found your notebook," she whispered. "Can you help me?" "Yes," I said, grabbing my pen. "Tell me everything." As she spoke, I thought about all the girls still trapped, still believing they had no choice. The network would grow. The information would spread. Some would escape, others wouldn't. But every girl who learned her rights was a victory. My family had erased me, but I'd become something they couldn't erase. Proof that their daughters could choose differently. That knowledge would spread through whispered conversations and hidden notebooks, through brave girls who risked everything for freedom. The war wasn't over. It might never be truly over. But as I gave another terrified girl the words that could save her life, I knew we'd already won the battle that mattered most. We'd proven it was possible to say no.